13 Questions by Man Transcending. Manhood in the Digital Age.
Welcome back to 13 Questions. This episode we have with us Owen Hunt. And Owen was actually recommended to me through Ben, episode number 49, I believe. So obviously I reached out to Owen, and Ben had kind of greased the wheels already, so we were, made the connection easily, and the interview was really, really good. This will probably be the last one released in the year 2021. So in a way, this is our Christmas / New Year's episode, and I think that it's perfect for that because we talk a lot about joy. Well, not a lot, but the joy comes up, and I think that what Owen's doing and what we're doing here at 13 Questions is we're both working towards trying to help other people find the joy in their lives, and I just think that that motif is perfect to not only end 2021 on, but begin 2022 on. So, what do you think about that, Adam?
Yeah, I think that's very well said. This interview went everywhere I didn't think it was going to go, and all the places that I didn't know I wanted to go. So incredibly enlightening. This is going to be an amazing edit to do. So yeah, Owen was great. Really enjoyed his perspectives, and I found a lot of common ground with him. And I think this is going to be great for the new year. Incredibly positive episode.
Yeah. So, well, do you want to get into the gratitudes then, where we're talking about the new year?
Let's dive in.
Gratitude, 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 oh, gratitude. Gratitude, 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 oh, gratitude.
While we're on the topic of New Year, more or less, my gratitude is just kind of to be thankful for everything that has occurred throughout 2021 in my personal life, especially when it comes to my living situation. I did make a big move this past summer / fall, so everything went as smooth as expected. No major road bumps. I'm in a new spot. Ellie and I have combined households, so that was a big step in our relationship. And moving states, moving away from family and friends is a big step. So lots of adjustments being still being kind of made and worked out. But 2021 was a really good year for me. So I'm just thankful that everything seems to be holding together throughout the turbulence that I'm seeing around me. So I'm thankful that, like I said, that I was able to move states and hold a steady day job and, being a part of the podcast too, obviously. So
that's great. It seems like you've managed to find a way to swim and, navigate the turbulent waters.
Yeah. So that's something I think that is important to just be thankful for at the end of the year, to look back, take a second and just, think about January 2021, think of where you were, what kind of mindset were you back at the beginning of the year, right? And then,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it is nuts. But yeah, so that's my gratitude.
Very simple, to the point. I like it. Mine is similarly as simple. I've developed this habit, and I'm incredibly grateful to have it and to have had the awareness to see it. I realized that every day at work, I would go to lunch and I would run to my car. And I found that I was in this just rushing mode, and just everything I seemed to do, the traffic, how people were reacting to me, just seemed to be this very, very rushed thing. And, on a lunch when you're, driving and going to get something, it adds a lot more dynamic. And so what do I do by running to my car? I save a minute, maybe. So I started just walking to my car. And then I found when I do this, my travel is shorter and it's less stressful. So I don't know how that works, but it's the idea of like when you wake up in the morning, how your mood and, if you have something that, really messes up your morning and it's a bad morning and you're upset, then the whole day kind of seems just to track into that. So yeah, I've just been kind of trying to just in that one repetitive moment in my life, making it a habit to just slow down, take my time. At the worst, I lose a minute or two, but somehow just by having that calmness in the overall oneness of that lunchtime event, it works out better. So I'm grateful for that, the ability to experience and see that.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to kind of staying in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Owen was talking about. I think that was his answer to what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally, right?
The listeners will correct you.
Oh, yeah.
Stay tuned.
So, what else do we have on the docket? We do have a new website, relatively new. We have mentioned it in the last 2 episodes, but in case this is your first time coming across the show, we have a featured page of all of the questions given to, all of the answers given to question 3, which is the book question. Which book has been most influential on your life? So it's a good reading list. It's very interesting. If you're looking for something to read, something to do, check it out. All the books are linked to Amazon. So if you want to actually purchase something or an physical copy or an Audible book, use the link, help support the show. What else is going on? We have the Shungite affiliate link. It'll still get you to the store, but Derek is still working on rebuilding the affiliate program. So you want to use the coupon code 13 questions to get 5% off your order. And I still believe the show gets a kickback. And then speaking of affiliate links, we do have the new Mark Sloan Red Light Therapy link. You should be able to find that on all of our socials. I believe I put it in the Discord too under Health and Fitness channel. If you are so inclined, that was also a really great episode with Mark. And then other ways to support the show.
Because time, talent, treasures.
Yeah.
If there's something, a question that you think is in the realm of being asked on the show, or a question that's been asked of you, in other words, what I'm saying is, please send us your questions. This is an evolving list. It is a list in which we have bonus questions in like tonight. I mean, I had to go to the bonus questions. I was so enthralled with some of the directions we went and how Owen thinks it. I'm like, I really want to know how he answers this. So that is the show. And yeah, input us, give us questions, send us guest suggestions, help us keep the lights on. These are all things that you can do that are the most valuable things that you can do. I mean, essentially this podcast is because of you in all regards, and we can make it so much better. So check out the show notes. All the links will be in there. 13questionspodcast@gmail.com. If you want to contact us, have any questions, send us your suggestions. You can head on over to the Discord links. We've got a bunch of social media links in there as well. And of course, you're going to have links to all of Owen's media. So encourage you to check him out. Really, really fascinating, cool dude. Wow. Weird. Like, when you meet people, you have an experience. I almost said like my friend Owen, but within a few hours, I feel that way. He's endeared himself to me on a personal level. I'm rambling stupidly now, Bill.
No,
I don't have a man crush. God damn it.
Yeah, the show definitely made a friend. So I hope that you guys get as much enjoyment out of this as Adam and I did, and Owen, and be a part of the magic and share the show if that's the least that you can do.
Share the show, support the show, whatever you think it's worth, whatever that value is. We keep improving, and it's because of you. Thank you so much.
And with that, I guess we will wish everyone a happy new year and good health and all that jazz. And now you can enjoy this episode with Owen Hunt.
It's amazing how united, all that the media just has become, and all of it just trickles. And I see people with just fear just in their eyes, man. I feel so bad for them. I wish they knew, but it's like, I have a bit that I'm still kind of working out, but like about NPR and how it's like ASMR for brainwashing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it basically just like hypnotizes you. It's just vaccines, racism.
Yeah.
That's basically NPR if I turned it on right now. And that's really literally what they're doing. They're just whispering into the soul. I have to figure out how to make it approachable to the audience. So I've been working on the premise being like how NPR confuses me. And I don't know whether, because it's like they're narrating the apocalypse, but in a very and calm way. They seem really not surprised about it. It's like, I don't know whether to load my shotgun or take a nap. I'm not really sure what to do. So I still haven't figured out that ease in, but I'm getting there.
Like they're witnessing the apocalypse, but they took way too much Xanax. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. Yeah. Like narrating the apocalypse on a bottle of Xanax. There it is. That's awesome.
It is so true though, because it's so hard. Like, how do you get people to understand that the media is casting spells? Like, what you put into your brain isn't just in one ear out the other. It stays in there.
Mm-hmm. It takes actively disengaging to even realize that it's a real thing. You don't even know, And I can relate to that. I can relate to being younger, and I think I got glimpses into like creativity, and because I was into music and stuff and some of these ideas and truths, and they were kind of just there, and I would get glimpses into them, but I still didn't have that whole veil lift, dark night of the soul, bone crushing, experience directly until I was 30, my Saturn return. And man, that was a lot. That was a lot. But I have so much compassion for people who are in that sort of state, and I make it like sort of part of my charge, or my it's definitely a desire of mine to help people who are feeling down and like they have less power than they do, because it's not true. It took me a long time to realize that too.
Yeah, that's what drew me to this project, was especially kind of like the mission statement that Darren wrote as part of our pitch emails. It is our intention to be of service to all who are seeking help or advice or whatnot. So yeah, dude, helping others is like the future is going to be built on collaboration, not.
Absolutely.
So
That's
Absolutely.
right. Yep, we're powerful when we're connected. When truth is when nothing is hidden, which would be great. Like if we all had ultimate knowledge of the dangers and the obfuscation in the world of, pick your product, your chemical, the event, then we would all be very similarly on the same page. So I always kind of see us divided. So even in this world now, we're fully connected, but now they can muddy the waters. So, you have access to all the information and then all that garbage. And so now that's such a much better state.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. It's crazy how they flooded it.
But it's weird, right? It's like getting worse, but at the same time, it's like we still know more than we did before. It wasn't the 4 newspapers that had to get controlled.
That's exactly right. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I've thought about it a lot, especially with all this new sort of Tartaria type of stuff. Like this whole thing has probably happened so many times, which Squid Game is this? Which number are we on?
Yeah. History repeats itself. It's just different flavors each time. And that's what I love the most about the communication. Cause now like, it's really hard to forget things. They try, but it's way easier for us to be able to record long-term trends in history. So
the whole history repeats itself reminds me. I was listening to a Crow episode today. Are you familiar with Paul Enslaved?
I don't think so.
Okay. He was talking about how a revolution, like, people like to say like we were in revolutionary times, right? Well, a revolution is like, it's cyclical, right? So we're turning back to the same point you started. And what he was saying is that we need a resolution, not a revolution. Like we need an answer. We don't just need to repackage the same old bullshit and, do the thing in a different cycle, right?
I really agree with that. I mean, so much of my work is really focused on attention and, from the idea that we are creating reality, or at least a consensus version of reality within the objective. And really the idea of pendulums or egregores or energetic informational structures, which sounds kind of far out, but I mean, it's just the momentum of energy that it can be kind of tracked, and one of the things that I think gets really weird is people don't understand that they're contributing to an idea that they are against by fighting it. So we do need a resolution. We don't need a revolution. Fighting against something only validates it and gives it more energy. We just need to create something altogether new. Our own, like, did you ever see that movie Waiting? Remember that movie?
Yeah. Yes.
You got to create your own penis showing game. I remember that. It's the dumbest thing ever, but it's somehow stuck with me. But like that's really where I think things are headed, or I hope so. I mean, I certainly want to be a part of that movement.
Yeah, Mother Teresa had a great line on that where she was asked if she would go to a war rally. She's like, ask me to go to a peace rally. And I'm like, that's exactly what it is. What energy do you want to bring in? It's, the idea that everybody has 2 wolves inside of them. Which one do you feed? But that's what I love too. You talk about that pendulum because when I was recently watching, because I forget his name, Bill, you'll know, it's that shaman who does the heart thing, the fact that you have neurons in your heart. And he's like, talk to your heart. Your heart's never going to lie to you. It's thinking differently. But then you get up to the brain and you've got 2 sides. You've got that left and your right. When you go to thinking, you're bouncing the worst against the best scenario. And that's just how our minds are built. So it kind of makes sense that the universe is built that way. So there's going to be these sways in energy. So yeah, as crazy as this extreme is going to be, it's going to get to a point and it's going to have to come back to the center.
It does. It's just a natural law. Balance will be.
And even within that, that's evolution. Sometimes you need to conflict and have problems and have destruction and burn down the forest so that you can build back different and stronger. And, who did I hear say this? I heard somebody say this, that you can look at the caterpillar, going from a caterpillar and it goes into a cocoon state. But if you just look inside that caterpillar, it looks like this goo, this complete mess. Everything's just jumbled up. There's nothing there, but it starts to solidify and become structure. So we could be in this incredibly, momentous growing potential state, but we can't see it because everything's just such a mess. And it has to go through this metamorphosis before things come together and you create that butterfly. So I like to think of us kind of just being in the goo right now. We can't see it through the forest, but
I like that analogy. That's really good. And in the goo too is really good too, because thinking of attention or whatever as sticky or things that will grab our attention and lead us down, to basically leak our energy. Getting it sticky, it just like pulls you in. It's like a funnel, and then before you know it, you've watched 4 hours of fear porn.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you feel like crap. And
well, and the compassion I have on people too is, if you stay in a fear state for long enough, your brain changes. So you get physical changes inside your brain. So your way of thinking is hyper modulated, and that passes down onto your children genetically. So, I mean, it's weird.
Man, it is. And that's a really good point. I mean, that's what we see. You know, when I was talking with Mark, you know, what I perceive to be the biggest threat personally is demoralization.
Yeah.
You know, and as people, you know, as long as we don't give up hope, there's still hope. And, you know, I guess powers that be or what have you have done a lot of work just in demoralization. And we talked a little bit about Yuri Bismanoff and that interview with G. Edward Griffin that he did, you know, back in like the 70s, I think, or maybe early 80s. But, you know, that demoralization, this idea that, you know, it's not worth it. There's no God. Everything's bleak. This sort of nihilistic, sort of toxic view of the world. That is the thing to be suspicious and wary of. That to me is the danger, bear trap kind of thing that we need to avoid and continue to stay positive. I mean, you can be positive. Are you guys familiar with what is that Viktor Frankl's book, The Man's Search for Meaning?
Yeah, that was the Amish Phil book recommendation from our last episode. I think
I guess I didn't listen to the whole episode.
Or you did, and it just washed over.
I listened to some of it. I didn't get to any of the apparently heavy parts.
I think that was. I don't think that was his actual book recommendation, but yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, but he did talk about it. Yeah, that's a good one too, because in that book he points out that there's nothing we can do, you know, to change other people, but we can always choose how we respond. And there is a gap between stimulus and response, and that's where free will is. And so when it comes to these provocations, these pendulums, egregores, attention, energy sucks, you know, it's in that moment where you feel, usually it's guilt, duty, or obligation. That's when it pulls you. And usually those coercion strings are usually some form of guilt or shame or something like that. It just try to pull us down to apathy, right? Which is the lowest place on the vibrational scale. And that's demoralization. So I think that's pretty interesting, but as long as I think we're vigilant and you know, work with ourselves and our own bodies and are a little bit conscious about how we feed ourselves mentally and emotionally, then that doesn't seep in. There's another movie too that actually brings to mind, and that's I forgot about Apocalypto, where he has that terrible dream and the father comes in and he's like, don't let that toxic shit in. Even if they come in here and pull us out, still, it doesn't, you know, like, don't let it in. Because I believe we do have a birthright to feel good in our bodies. I really do believe that.
I can't believe that you didn't get that book from the episode. That's so okay. I don't believe in coincidences, right? So
there's no such thing as coincidences,
right? It's a Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, there's two parts. The first part is his story, and then the second part is his philosophy. It's a great book.
Awesome. Sweet. We haven't even gotten into the interview yet.
No, yeah, it's great. I think these questions are awesome too. I love the format, guys. It's awesome.
Sweet. Well, how about question number 1? What was the best advice ever given to you? Would you modify it at all today?
So I thought about this one today, and I have to give it to my dad. He said this. I don't know where he got it, but he said that it's better to want something you don't have than to have something you don't want. And I wouldn't modify it. It's been such incredible advice, specifically for me, like romantically, as far as who I involve myself with in that phase of my life. Because it sucks to be alone. You know, we all know what it's like to feel lonely, you know, but I don't think there's anything worse than feeling lonely in a relationship, you know, from my perspective. And I've experienced it. I'm not saying that because I used the advice. It just matched my experience. So that was from my dad. And my dad's a wise man, but I can't think of many nuggets that are directly attributed to him. But that was probably one of the wisest things I ever heard when I heard it. And it helped me in a critical time because I was in a breakup and I was with someone who I wasn't really supposed to be with, I don't think, or we should, or I don't know. That phrasing is weird, but what I mean is I'm happy that it didn't work out. It wasn't the best fit.
Well, that's an amazing lens to look through the world, because that's almost prismatic. You can look at certain situations and it divides it into very clear differences that you can appreciate for what they are. So it allows you to see both sides clearly just through that frame of thought. That is very good wisdom.
Yeah, the old man. He's come in handy a couple of times. We don't agree on everything, but he's a good strong example of a person that is a scrupulous and good human for the most part, and nobody's perfect, of course. And when he told me that, it dropped my jaw. I was like, man, that's exactly what I need to hear. And that could be true of a lot of things, like think about stardom or fame, having something like that and having some of the experiences, no matter where you're at or what you're doing, you're gonna have problems. The difference is just the quality of the problem.
And that reminds me of not settling, especially in contextual, in a relationship context, right? I could have used that piece of advice like 5 years ago and would have saved like 4 years of time, right? Like, don't get me wrong, my last girlfriend was a sweetheart, right? It was just not what I needed. So, and there was like a fear barrier there to overcome, and it's not easy. But once you do, like I've met Ellie through Grammarica Discord chats, and like things are great now. So like it's like taking that leap of faith, right? Like not settling for something that you don't want, even if you have it, right?
One of my mentors is Richard Grove of the Autonomy Program. And one of the things that he said is very much along this line. He said that whenever you're going after something that you really want, the universe will offer you something that's a close second, or maybe even not so close second, to kind of see if you'll take it.
I like that thought.
Yeah,
I really like that thought. That's so similar. I've heard Duncan Trussell when I think it might have been this one in the original when he did it, but he talks about the world conspiring for you or against you, and he likes to think of the world as a video game, which I like to do sometimes. That there will be, an ammo pouch here or something for you, or a secret spot that you need to find. But now I like it even more that, there's tests. And I've seen this in things like remote viewing. The first time people do it, they have great success. And I've always wondered about that. But that's a great little philosophy that, are you going to stick with it once you've had something and then it's no longer there? Do you really want it? Because if you really want it, you're going to chase it. Sorry, I don't mean to steal your question.
No, not at all. That's right in line too. I mean, I've had that experience with stand-up comedy. My first set, the universe played a great joke on me and I had a pretty good set. The next year, I fucking ate shit, nightly. I mean, I did like 30 days in a row one time and just ate it every night. I mean, it made me a lot stronger. I know that I want to pursue it. And ultimately, I've, gotten better. But one of the big things there too, I think is falling into the trap of that you have to do everything the way that everyone else does too. It's a very much, again, pendulum, like do as I do. You have to do it this way. It's like this is how you do comedy, and you have to be like this. And this is how you write a joke. And so it's real easy after you get that beginner's luck, right? Like, let's say you're doing that remote viewing and you go in the first time, intuitively, you do really, really good. And then somebody's like, yeah, but you don't realize how hard it is. I've been at this for 50 years. And then they, fill you full of poison and false ideas about how hard it is. And then before you know it, you listen to this fucking guy. And then it gets harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. And maybe, just maybe, it didn't have to be that hard. But even in going through that process and going through it and making it hard, I think that does make you stronger and better skilled at whatever the project or the talent or skill that you're trying to develop.
Yeah, exactly. You sharpen a sword by hammering it up against steel.
That's right. Iron sharpens iron.
Question number 2. What do you choose to ignore?
I choose to ignore a lot of like fear porn type of stuff. I choose to ignore a lot of music as well with lyrics in it. And this is something that's new for me. As far as being really conscious about inputs, I've understood that for a long time, but I've always listened to music with lyrics in it. I've only been listening to music without lyrics for, I'd say maybe like 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. But it's made a huge difference in my life. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but those subconscious things that like, they just rattle around in there, and you don't realize that until you withdraw yourself. So, if people have the opportunity to take some time away from, I would say even all media, even books for a week, and maybe try to limit what their mental input is, just to see what the difference is in their overall, performance level, productivity, mood, etc. I think they would be very, very surprised with some of the results. Now, it's difficult to go on a fast of information, as much content as we have, around us at all times. But in context, in coming back to it, it makes it, in my experience, a lot more intentional. And I retain more. My attention is easier to control as well. But specifically, the thing that has kind of brought me down the most, and I don't want to discourage anybody. I love the movement of free flowing information and that people are pointing out what's going on. But for me, it's very much a Terence McKenna, and I'm also just a really emotional person. I'm emotionally sensitive. And so if I have a lot of this type of inputs or this type of content, then it messes with my vibrational state. So Terence McKenna said, when you get the message, hang up the phone. It's like, I know what's going on. I get it. I've known since 2012, man. It's on the World Economic Forum's website right now publicly. I can just read exactly what, is trying to be done. I don't need to, know about this politician or this one or that one or any of these little things, because I know what the big move is. So I choose to ignore a lot of that. Even though I'm aware of it, I don't mean ignore, like pretend it doesn't exist and repress the truth. I mean, I just don't acknowledge it. And I actively want to encourage people to learn how to shift our attention and energy and awareness toward more productive habits and practices.
Yeah, it's a great way to think of it. Consider, it's like they used to say brain food, or, the TV will rot your brain. We're now so encompassed with information that, we've kind of lost that sense that, what you put into your mind is just as important what you're putting into your body, and it affects everything. If you're around a lot of fear-inducing information, your brain will start to change shape, and you will be naturally prone to being more fearful and alert of, stress and possible threats in your environment. And I mean, that's just sound and ideas coming in, nothing else. And it changes you physically.
Yeah, it's amazing that it does that. But I know for a fact that you're exactly right. Like, you create new connections in the brain and in your body, like even posture, like you will notice, like people who are in that state, the body keeps score, like it's amazing how accurate it is. Like, it seems almost like it's prejudiced or something, or it's just weird. It's odd, but, yeah, man, it's amazing, but it's so true. And we have to avoid, I think, that demoralization and that fear state, and really work on learning how to feel as good as we can, and encourage ourselves and each other to be constructive, productive, those types of things. Because you could take the same situation and people could view it two entirely different ways. I talk a lot about reality creation, stuff like this. Stuff gets kind of hokey in the mainstream, and I know why, because it's grossly oversimplified. but we could take some of these concepts and break them down simply, even a matter of just having a positive attitude, going out into the day versus having a negative attitude and walking around shoulders slumped, like everything. There's an entire sort of track that could go one, like a butterfly effect, that could go one way and one that could go another based on an outlook. And that's not reality creation or anything. It's very just simple. If I came in here and I started doing this podcast and I'm all bummed out and I don't want to talk, it's not going to be as much fun for everybody. The energy is not going to be as good. I'm not going to get as much out of it. You guys aren't going to get as much out of it. The audience isn't going to get as much out of it. And then, and then I'm probably not going to get another opportunity or another thought later on when something else happens, when I could flash into your mind or whatever. It's like, nah, that guy was kind of reserved, or he just didn't participate or whatever reason, it might not even be conscious. It probably wouldn't even be consciously on your radar. It's just a thing that we kind of all do. And sometimes we're not even aware of it. I know that I was not aware of it for years, and I was just catching glimpses here and there, here and there, here and there. But ultimately, I've been really blessed to be able to have the opportunity to kind of shut a lot of this stuff out and be diligent about my own development, which fucking 6 months ago, I would have thought that was the smarmiest, most pretentious statement that I could make. But I've really started to distinguish a lot between what I would call self-help and self-development. And I view self-help as healing, and self-development as really encountering and exploring our unique characteristics. And those are two completely different things. I think they both kind of need each other and work together in a weird way, where it's like I start to discover my tastes and preferences and what I really like and who I really am. And as I do that, trauma comes up. And when that's prompted, now I have to go into this sort of self-help world and heal that. And then, go back into the development and decide what is me and what is the program, and what are my thoughts, and what did I hear on a podcast, or what did I, hear there in a book? What is my original thought? What do I really believe? What are my taste preferences? That's that development side. So I think that's really a cool thing to acknowledge and keep in mind, because I think it's toxic to view us as like negative or, a virus on the earth or like whatever, because that's demoralizing. That's feeding into that mentality. And what's better than that is just seeing the humor, the silliness. Like we are like these beautiful expressions of God with hairy taints. It's weird, but there's something that you can appreciate about that. Like we're this almost perfect thing, like we're this perfection. It's imperfect. I don't know. It's a juxtaposition. But I think by choosing to ignore certain things, specifically negative news, media, and music with lyrics, because that stuff just gets stuck in your mind, and you start being hungry like the wolf, or
you are what you eat.
Yeah, it's weird. That stuff, it just bats around. And I really think there's an active campaign of just that is a very powerful demoralization tool, especially culturally.
Oh, hell yeah. Advertising sells. So why wouldn't you use the same tricks for anything to gain you political power or control over people? So yeah, it's utilized in all directions, and we love it.
That's it. Yeah, Adam said, advertising or the lyric thing. We have the gratitude jingle for the show, right? And like the whole premise behind that is so it gets stuck in people's head, so they're forced to remind themselves to think about something they're grateful for, right? So I really like the music with no lyrics, because there is a thing to that earworm thing. You're right. And then like the media fast, like to me, like cutting out and controlling, ignoring like fear porn and all this stuff is kind of like stopping the bleeding, right? You gotta take care of the open wound first, and then when you go back into like the self-development phase, like you were talking about, that's, when, stop the bleeding first and then do that work. So you have to like almost reestablish your baseline by eliminating all of that negative, media, whatever, out of your life, whether it's, because it's all over the place, right? Like 24-hour news cycle, and then you've got Twitter and you've got Facebook, and, where is it not? You just got to turn everything off for a while, I think.
Yeah. I think there's a really good analogy too. It makes a lot of sense. It's like a stop the bleeding, like, okay. And then we can get, and start doing that deeper work, which we all need to do. I mean, we've been programmed in ways that we are not even conscious of from a very, very, very young age. So to stop and take a break, like I'm almost 40, but I'm really just now discovering, parts of myself that I had no idea, and through doing that process of self-development, that requires focus on you, not on other people, not on what the current events are, not on what, like I recently took this amazing workshop. It's called the Sam Christensen Process. And I guess it would be called like a personal brand identity type of workshop or something like that. But a lot of actors take it, comedians, whatever. And the idea is to be able to come across as people see you. What is people's perception of you? What are those characteristics? How do you come off? And if you can either double down on that, or you can fight it. It's up to you. But if you know what that is, especially as a comedian, right? I go on stage and then I confirm the thought that you have about me to you. Okay, we're rolling, right? Like, here we go, right? And that's the same of a podcast or whatever. I see this person, I have this sort of idea about them, this image, they match it. Okay, cool. I know who this person is. And so now you kind of trust more. But what they get into really is essence. And then another level, building your own vocabulary, which is something I never thought about, but probably should have. We pick up all these things subconsciously through every input that we have, and we start talking like other people. We start laughing like other people. It's an unconscious process. You don't mean to do it, but you do it. Whether you could try not to do it, it wouldn't matter. You still do it. But by actively programming specific pieces of vocabulary words that are fitting to you, they said, make an intriguing words list. These are words you like. The first thing that they said is, because of texting, our vocabulary is limited like 60% or something like that. I don't even know, whatever number, 100 majillion percent. And we just say awesome. We just say great. That's, there's no expression via text because auto text or whatever. And so we're losing a lot of accurate depiction and words that are more precise. So that's what they really tried to coax out. And it made a huge impact on me. And it also made me see really the beauty of the imperfection of being human and my own uncomfortability and nervousness. And, like the one thing I didn't want to be called was a fucking puppy. And of course, it's the first thing somebody writes down, and that was true for everyone, not just me, everyone had. But you can take these ideas and concepts about yourself and run them through and even reframe them in a way that suits you. Like you can add mystery to it, and use it as a strength, and also withdraw from it. So for instance, as warm as I can be, all I have to do is back away from that pole. And you're like, damn, why is he so cold? I'm not actively being cold. I'm just withdrawing the warmth. So it's a different sort of way to see that. So it blew my mind, but that's helped me a lot, ignoring a lot of this other stuff to really focus on myself. And like I said, I almost feel guilty to have the opportunity. I feel just so grateful and blessed to be able to work on myself. I know a lot of people don't have the time or whatever. And I've worked hard to get here too, but I still almost don't feel like I deserve it.
No, I love how introspective you are in this, because it really, it brings real attention to being self-aware. Because when you realize how other people can perceive you, people treat you the way that they will perceive you. And so, maybe how you're being treated may be impartial to not necessarily you, but maybe you can do something different So you have better outcomes with the people you deal with. And, when you start dealing with that, I mean, it could even be just how you part your hair. I've seen this done, and you can try it yourself. You just take your Zoom call or recorder and flip the image. Sometimes a certain look will be more menacing in the opposite direction because, you're looking in a mirror. You're not seeing how other people are really perceiving you. So they even make special mirrors that like reverse the image. So there's these little hacks. So if somebody's looking at you and they're just naturally feeling you're more aggressive, it's not necessarily their fault.
Interesting. It's not, but like the first thing that they do in that workshop, and I think they have like an online one too, which I was blown away at how amazing it was. But the first thing they do is you just go sit on the stage before anybody meets anybody else. And they just have a whole page of words, just tons of words that are characteristics, and people just tick, 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 tick. You're up there for 45 seconds. They got to go through the whole list before you get off stage. It's just first impressions. You take 11 or 12 surveys, and then you tally all those up and you see how people perceive you based on, I had 11 votes for friendly, or whatever that is. And that becomes one of your main sort of headings. And then you can list intriguing words underneath that heading, whatever that is, friendly or, whatever. And then on and on and on. So they would have, I think, about 15 or 16 major words that they would pick. And then you would kind of develop each one of those sections and pick out certain things. And then you would go up and tell stories. And during the stories, people would just write down sort of the essence that they got from that story. Not necessarily, it didn't have to be a good story or anything, but there was always something vulnerable they'd ask, like, I regret, or something I regret was, and then you'd have to tell that story. And so now you're in this energy. And so people are writing that down. So back to the puppy example, one of those like essence statements that they wrote was blistery winds blew and lightning crashed. The sky cracked open and a puppy emerged. So like, that's a totally different frame on the whole puppy thing. You know what I mean? Because there is this element of mystery now, and it's a little bit abstract and juxtaposed. So it doesn't seem so on the nose and offensive to me. And I need to just accept that about myself too. But how can I showcase it? Because I could showcase it in a funny, sort of mysterious rap if I want, right? And so I can like lean into mixing. So, like playing with those poles again.
Has this changed the way you dress to kind of change your own behavior? If you're doing like a job interview, dress for the interview, put on your cologne, comb your hair because you're feeling that impression with you. Does that flow?
I think so. For me, I have actually recently changed the way I dress. I'm also doing The Artist's Way, which is a book by Julia Cameron. And there's also homework that they give you in that workshop too, where they're like, throw out 5 outfits and go buy 5 new ones or whatever. And so, yeah, I actually have changed the way that I dress recently. Just because before I was just always wearing a black shirt. People used to just rag me for that. I would just wear a black shirt. Like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just, I'm just doing my thing. And a black shirt, it's kind of dressy. You can wear that with jeans or like a blazer or whatever, and you look sort of professional. It's, 2020, whatever now. And, it's a little bit different of a game. I used to dress up and do stand up in a tux, and it completely changed the way I came across, and the act itself was totally different. I even had jokes, obviously, about wearing the tux because I was the only one who did. And I did stand out, but it wasn't really my voice. But I had to try it out, So, yeah, absolutely. Different ways of expression. And I think the soul, one of my friends, she used to feel really bad about kind of, I guess she would feel maybe vain. But I think that our soul wants to express itself. She would go and get her eyelashes done and feel like, am I being vain? Right? Like, because I'm doing this. But I believe those types of things, the way we dress, how we present ourselves, hygiene, etc. I think our soul loves it. It wants to express its individuality. It wants to be different and unique and beautiful and sexy and all those types of things, even as a soul, and so Yeah, I've changed a lot of things. I've changed a lot of things around my house, actually more than even my wardrobe. The way that my workstation set up, and the things that I have around me to kind of keep me grounded and reminded of, who I am or who I perceive myself to be. What my identity, how I relate to that concept.
What book has been most influential on your life and why?
This is probably the hardest question for me. But I do have one. And it's right here. This one right here, Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zeland. This is the book for me that it connected a lot of the dots. I would say I woke up in 2012 and really went down the kind of conspiratorial wormhole for 2 or 3 years. And then ultimately came to the end of being sad and depressed, and got tired of it. And I started looking into self-help stuff and marketing. And I was like, well, you can't beat them, join them at first, right? The pendulum's really swung. I was like, I'm just going to be a shit bag. We'll see. That didn't work. That wasn't me either, but I did pursue a lot of self-help, spirituality, anything that I could find that could help me elevate my emotional state, because I was in a bad way. I was really crushed. And so several books were influential to me. And that's why this is such a hard question, because I spent about a year with Ralph Waldo Emerson's Self-Reliance. And that to me is probably one of my favorite. It's so hard not to choose that book. Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson changed the way that I view the world in a huge way. Massively. And As a Man Thinketh, The Kabbalion, The Power of Now. I could go on and on and on. There's so many great books that I read, the Tao Te Ching, so many. But Reality Transurfing, for me, it resolved so many of these ideas, and it does such a good job of describing the nuance of the energetic phenomenon. The idea of pendulums is Vadim's. And so if you're familiar with egregores or tulpas or tulkus or whatever, he calls them pendulums. So all of those things are kind of more specific. And when he says pendulums, it's far more generalized and specific. So I would say like all egregores are pendulums, but not all pendulums are egregores, if that makes sense. These are collections of energy. These are energetic informational structures that people are basically hooked into. There's so many examples, but just looking at a classic football game in the United States is a perfect one, right? We have the home team run out and everybody cheers for the home team. They get high on all this energy. They're just jiving off of this pendulum. And then the other team comes out, and what does everybody do? They boo them. And what happens then? Well, they're just like, yeah, we like it. Yeah, we're the bad guy. Give us that energy. If you just shut up and they ran out, they would be like, what the fuck just happened, bro? If it was dead quiet in the stadium, it'd be like, there would be no energy. It's like I saw Radiohead once and they brought it way down, and all I could hear was some hippie go, it's so quiet. It would be that kind of energy.
That makes me want to try golf in like a arena.
Yeah, dude, it would be a totally different experience, right? Very Happy Gilmore. But yeah, that specific idea, along with the idea of, he says goal. And so I've taken this deeper, but he says, when you find the path to your goal, your life becomes a celebration, because it's about the process. It's this constant pursuit of, whatever it is that makes your heart sing, and I describe that as like purpose. I think it's a little bit deeper than a goal. I think there are many goals that are accomplished on the way, once you kind of have that sense of purpose or that reason why. But, for a sort of a broad term that isn't that specific, and it doesn't really have any stigma as far as like woo-woo-ness or what have you. It works, right? Like you find the path to your goal, and your life becomes a celebration because you're on the path to your goal. And it's not about attaining the goal. just identifying it in itself is pretty freaking amazing. It's beautiful, especially in a world like we live in now. So, for me, that's really synonymous with purpose and living a life with purpose. And that's been really the book that propelled me as to see how reality can unfold. Because even just the first chapter I reread the other day, and man, I think he said something like variability is the most consistent. What does he say? It's such a beautiful quote. Variability is the most consistent element of reality, or something like that. Meaning there are so many different perspectives. He talks about how, from a quantum perspective, how the world works. He talks about materialism versus idealism, and basically says there's evidence for either one, but you can't get all the evidence for either one. And so what that means, and the significance of that, is that we really do have a large impact on reality. How we perceive it influences it somehow. And the world is a mirror. And as within, so without, as above, so below, whatever it is that we project onto that mirror is reflected in reality. And that element is variable based on how we are projecting toward the projector, or the reflector. Excuse me.
I love it.
Yeah. So there's a reality transurfing by Vadum Zeeland.
Yeah. It's a curious book. There have been, I don't recommend books often, because I just, people aren't going to read them. So I don't often recommend books, but the people that I've recommended this to, quite a number of people have really resonated with it. And actually got involved with it's a whole nother story, but a group that sort of, promotes reality transurfing, and we wound up going on different directions. But there's quite a bit of really usable information in his model. He does such a great job at resolving it. I would call it like a spiritual individualism, and really embracing that. Whereas so many spiritualities go collectivist, he focuses really on these ideas of these pendulums and how we get caught up into groups and identities and things that are basically manipulating us out of our energy to become part of this thing, become part of that thing. You're not a good X if you don't X, and that guilt, duty, and obligation, those are the strings of the pendulum that pull us. It's like, that's what coercion is. And so as we radiate energy at certain things, ideas, whatever that is, we are affecting those things. And for us to understand and know the implications of that could be really huge for this movement. And so that's why it's been something that I've been sticking with. And even on YouTube or Facebook or wherever I am, I'm talking about this stuff and trying to do it in a way that's somewhat covert, right? I'm like, this is a pendulum, what I'm saying? Like, look here, and just trying to relate these ideas so that they can be hopefully usable and applicable, because the idea of pendulums and attention is it's insane. Like, it's had such a huge impact on my life. And even just using the model, I went from open micer to got an opportunity to go MC on the Impractical Jokers cruise.
Nice.
I mean, I didn't even know that it existed. I didn't even know that was a possibility for me. I was on stage with Gene Simmons at a guitar pick throwing contest. I had no idea that was something, I thought, oh, I have to suffer and, go through all this stuff. But honestly, he calls it the rustle of the morning stars, which I think is beautiful, your intuition. You listen to your intuition, very often you will find yourself in a position or a place that is overwhelming, and you truly have to be really grateful for. It's like I just was randomly working. I was working on a Netflix show at the time. I mean, I had a good opportunity then, but it was ending. And I sent my friend Marco Polo because we were in a creepy hospital, and I thought he would thought it was funny. And that's kind of how I felt prompted to do it or whatever. And I did. And then he sent me a Marco Polo right back and said, "Hey dude, do you want to come hang out with me on the Caribbean all winter?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah. I hate the winter. Let's go." And that was a couple of years ago. It was like 2018, I think. And so I wound up, I wound up going to Spain with those guys and being around a lot of really talented people, really kind people, and really being able to hone my craft in an environment that's not an open mic, right, at Smith's Old Bar or whatever. Like, it's true about environment. It's true about who we surround ourselves with, because again, we're picking up things subconsciously all the time. It doesn't have to be Cardi B or a rap song or whatever. I mean, it can be, the roommate or what have you. Like I actually had a dip because of a roommate one. Like he was living here and he was ordering food late all the time. The McDonald's bags are around. You're noticing that stuff, even if you don't consciously want it. Then all of a sudden one day it's 10:30 and you smell McDonald's fries, but there's nothing in the house, I don't know, man. It's weird. But yeah, that book is awesome. I highly recommend it. And if people are interested in studying it, it is a freaking doozy. It's 19 chapters. It's about 25 hours long total. But I'm hosting a book club going through it. So if people are interested in that, that's my current offer. And I'm not saying Reality Transurfing is my number one book so I can plug that offer. I'm truly enamored with the principles in it. And frankly, I kind of got myself in a position where, as far as relating to that movement, I don't really have any desire to do that, but the principles themselves, I have to back them. I have to give credit where credit's due, and not ad hominem, because even it doesn't matter who writes something or says something, truth is truth. So I'm going through that book again because it's been very impactful on my life.
Well, I love that idea of the strings, kind of realizing that we're all marionettes with, countless strings. So if you realize that the strings are there, then you don't have to let them pull you. You can pull against them and you can choose your path better because you're aware, that there's this current drawing you, so you can swim against it. That's really good analogy.
It's amazing, man. I mean, he goes far in depth. That chapter alone, I think, is 2 hours when he introduces that. And I mean, the concepts continue from there, but guilt, duty, obligation, these provocations to get our energy, like that's really it. And so back to that Viktor Frankl book, that free will space, that provocation reaction, push comes to shove. It's like a script. We do this, you do that, and then this happens, and then this happens. So. Conflict is always seeking to elevate the conflict more. And so if you break that cycle and you react in a different way, if it's humorous or just unexpected, then that can break it. And then, or you can just not react, you can just be like, okay. And then what he says, the pendulum falls through. It's like, one of my examples is like my sister smacks food when she eats cereal. And it's the worst, man. Apple Jacks. It really irritated me when I was a kid. I mean, I would come undone and we would get into this huge fight. And I'm like, dude, only because I could have just left the room. I could have just not let it bother me. When you become, more of an observer and you start working on some of these principles and ideas, then you start to see these triggers in yourself and it's almost funny, but it doesn't mean I don't succumb to it too, but just being aware of it is a huge head start.
Yeah, it's the only way you're going to reprogram yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What rule do you have for yourself that you never break, and why do you think it's important?
So this is pretty new for me too, and it's just a consistent writing practice. I'll go one further as like a gratitude practice every day in the morning before I even get out of bed. I start with that because I noticed that really how you begin the day, it really sets the tone for the day. It doesn't mean that the day has to continue down that path, but it often does. So I really try and be very intentional in the beginning of the day and just give a lot of gratitude. And I'll just think of, this is my little trick, and it's real easy because our memories are very powerful. I'll just think of someone that I love. That's it. And as soon as I do that, it could be, my grandfather who's no longer with us, or my mom, or a friend, or anybody who touches my heart. I'll think about them. And then I'll just let those emotions start to, release into my body. And then the more that I focus on those emotions, it's like an amplifier. And then after a few minutes of that, I usually feel pretty good. And then I wake up and I do morning pages. And that's the newer thing that I have taken on as a result of The Artist's Way, which I plugged earlier. That's a great book. I mean, that's up there. And that's something I've gone through before, but not quite as intensely as I have now. And I certainly hadn't seen the results that I have this time. But morning pages, for anybody who doesn't know, every morning you just wake up and you just write. You just free write. It doesn't matter. You can write your to-do list. You can write about anything. It doesn't matter. And you just literally free write at the beginning of the day. And what actually happens as a result of that, again, the butterfly effect, preferences start coming out. Things that you like, that you dislike, things that you don't really care about that much, but you thought you did. And the one thing that I've noticed is when I hit kind of a sensitive spot is I don't want to do morning pages anymore, and I don't want to stop. But as long as I continue that process, it starts to open up the reality that I'm very likely neglecting. So gratitude practice, that's the one thing that I do every day, no matter what. It doesn't take long. It's just a couple minutes. It doesn't have to be anything insane. I recommend people just beginning, because I would wake up and just turn on Twitter, and watch Kyle Rittenhouse shooting people. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck, what a great way to start the Who Wants an Omelet? I recommend that for anybody. Just creating any kind of daily morning kind of ritual, whatever that is, and making it as simple as possible. That's the thing that I do every day.
That's a great way to hack yourself. If you've ever been woken up angry or had a really bad event, it like follows you, you end up being just more aggressive. It seems that the whole world reflects that back at you. So, hack it in the other direction to prime the waters for positivity. That's a really good bit of advice.
That tip that you gave about just thinking about someone that you love, I think that is so, I can't believe I didn't think about this before, because sometimes, when you tell people like all you got to do is think of something you're grateful for like 3 times, or like, 3 things 1 time a day, or whatever it is, right? Like sometimes we have challenges or struggles doing that. One of the things that past guest psychoanalyst Mattis Miller shared with us to kind of help with this trick, he called it the BAT exercise, BAT. It's blessings, blessings, accomplishments, and traits. So, but what the point I'm getting at is the end goal of these exercises is to, like you said, get that welling feeling going in your heart center, like your heart chakra, your gratitude center. And it doesn't matter how you get there. This is why it doesn't matter what you're thankful for. You can be thankful for the fact that your shoes are tied or whatever, right? So it's just however you can make that connection, like make it. And yeah, like do it first thing in the morning, because your day is going to be great if you do.
Yeah, it's been hugely helpful to me to just do that. And I remember one of my friends a while back ago, he said, people do gratitude journals a lot, but he said it doesn't work if you don't feel the gratitude. And there's literally no thing that I give a fuck about. I mean, on an energetic level that it's part of the all, or I respect it, you know what I mean? But there's like, I don't care about Alexis or, the new knife set, or whatever. Like those are just things, and to me, what I do care about are people. I care about experiences and experiencing, hopefully higher quality emotions and life and all that kind of stuff. And then nobody ever complained their way to the top. So it doesn't work that way. Everyone who I know who's wealthy, personally, and I know there are bitter people out there who have money, but everyone that I know who's wealthy personally has an incredible disposition. And some of those people have suffered some really traumatic things in their lifetime too. They've dealt with cancer and many other life-threatening illnesses, etc., and still somehow manage to light the fucking room up no matter what. So there's something very powerful to that. I do recommend it. Damn it, I said it.
Oh, God. That's my gratitude for the day, that doo-doo is always funny.
Oh, man.
If I were to ask your best friend, what is the one thing they would say you need to work on the most, and why?
This is a tough question. I would think boundaries. I might be wrong about that. Boundaries has been something that I've had to learn a lot about. I'm very much, I don't know if you guys know much about the Enneagram, the personality typing thing, but I'm a type 2 on it. And a type 2 is the helper, which is a very positive thing, right? Like we want to help people. We intuitively can kind of pick up on things that they need, but we also manipulate people. And it's not really it's not out of a bad intention, but we want good things for people, and we kind of put them in situations without maybe saying what we should, which lends me to, it's very easy for me to get sucked into a group. Like this is why this pendulum lesson is like very, very profound in my life, because I have so many times, lost boundaries in a group, taken on their attributes, become subservient to it, guilt, duty, obligation running me, shame, feeling threats of being left out, what have you. And, so keeping those boundaries and keeping that energy, it's really important. And maybe even, giving yourself the amount of a little bit of not to rest on the laurels, but maybe a little pat on the back, that's something that we probably all need to do a little bit more of. My friend was in Vancouver was doing mirror work, where you like talk about how great you are to yourself in the mirror. I'm like, ooh, sounds like an acid trip gone wrong, bro. But that's that is what I think, like, probably boundaries, and then I'm taking a little bit of appreciation and knowing how to do that. My dad's also a type 2. He doesn't receive gifts well, because he wants to be the one that gives the gift. And type 2 will do things around the house and expect something without asking for it sometimes. And that's that like weird sort of thing. And so you go and you do all the stuff for the group, and then you expect the group to do this thing. And they don't often do that thing. They don't necessarily intuitively pick up on your needs, right? But because we are who we are, and this is our perspective, we assume everyone else has the same perspective, but there's 9 types on the wheel. So, understanding someone else's disposition and their type, what they're drawn to, and how their motivation is, really, that's what's cool about the Enneagram. I think that sets it apart from other personality typing systems. What it really focuses on the motivation of the person. And so understanding that, I think, can be really huge in relating to other people.
Love it. I'm going to have to take that one. I took another one called something personalities. It was like 31 personalities or something. Forget what that one is, but that one nailed me to a T. I was blown away by it. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think that I could be, I've known we're computers because I've done interrogations, and there's an entire process behind that where you're watching the body and asking questions and asking certain questions and waiting for physiological responses to know when a person's going to answer you, right? And so you build it. And so I learned very quickly that people were computers, but it's so hard to even equate that to yourself. I'm going to have to take that personality test. I recommend people take personality tests because it really kind of cracks at like, whoa, we're way similar than we want to acknowledge.
Yeah. The personality typing test is like INTP, INFP, INTJ, like Is that the one you're talking about?
I can't remember. Let's see if
okay.
I can't find it real quick.
If it's 16 personalities, then it is that. And that's based on like...
It probably is 16 personalities, yeah.
Yeah. And that's based on like the Jungian model. And I like that model a lot. It's really good. And so there are limits to personality tests. I agree with you. People should take them. I will advise just some caution. For me, I mistyped myself on the Enneagram. I took a test. And sometimes when we take a test, we want certain results and consciously, unconsciously. So we might subtly alter some of our responses based on what those questions are. And so maybe take more tests, several, and tally them up and take an average or something like that. Or with the Enneagram, I recommend reading about all the types, and the one that makes you sick to your stomach, that's you. The one where you're like, I don't do that. Oh shit, I do that. Like that's the one on the Enneagram. The Enneagram is ancient. It's embedded in so many things. It's in the 9 places on the Odyssey, right? Like Iliad's or the Homer's Odyssey, not the Iliad, but he goes to 9 different places. Each one of those represents one of the personality types on the Enneagram. It was only passed down via word of mouth until the 70s when Claudio Naranjo wrote a book about it. And he's a South American guy. And so you can check out Beatrice Chestnut's work on it. It's extensive. The Complete Enneagram is her book. And then Vanessa Fernandez of the Enneagram Workshop also does an amazing job with the Enneagram. She came and taught us. I was like super lucky to be able to convince her somehow to come and teach it to us. And so she had kind of a body test to kind of test what your number were, like you're talking about the kinesiology thing, to talk about like what your Enneagram type is, so that you don't necessarily, because there's 3 different types. There's head, heart, and gut types. So this is your center of gravity in your body. So you can begin there. Where do you really feel your center? Is it up here? Is it in here? Or is it closer to your navel? And so that would help you kind of determine which of the triad you are. And then you can do some muscle testing and kind of get an idea as well. But I also recommend reading just about each type, because it's amazing. It's like a huge hack. One of my friends who's a screenwriter, he uses the Enneagram exclusively in his scripts he's like, it's cheating, dude. Cause like, if you know what that person's motivation is on the wheel, like, because there's lines that are drawn too. So like if someone's over here, over to here, and then over to here, like they're progressing toward one character and they devolve to another. So for me as a 2, I could devolve to an 8, which is the challenger. So if I repress a bunch of shit and then blow up, I go down, I descend to an 8, the negative characteristics of an 8. If I ascend as a 2, which is very groupy, I go toward the 4, which is the individualist. The individualist is like the one person who doesn't believe that you could have a number for them on the Enneagram. And so they're the artist type or archetype. So for me, healthily, as far as boundaries and being unique and an individual and dressing different, it's going toward that type 4 in my development from a type 2. So they're all connected. It's this crazy wheel. You could study it your whole life. It's like Yellowstone Park. You could live there forever and you still wouldn't see it all.
But still, that's great. And that's a great analogy, because it's almost like a roadmap. And, back to just how we interact and how we treat each other and how we reflect upon each other. If you understand these personalities and these characteristics and where you are, and if you don't like aspects, it gives you kind of roadmaps in how to evolve yourself to a different position. And I love that from the screenwriting perspective, because we all fit into these certain things. So if you're developing characters, you got to choose one. And if you don't know what they all are, you're not going to get some of the most interesting ones.
Yeah, it's a big hack for story. And, a lot of people study Joseph Campbell's work, which is fantastic, A Hero with 1,000 Faces. And Dan Harmon did a great job of simplifying his work. You can look up, his story wheel. But the Enneagram specifically, the point that he makes in the beginning of the book on screenwriting with the Enneagram is that most of the time we haven't charted anything about this character. We know nothing about them. We're just writing this crazy script. We get 3/4 of the way through. We're like, man, the twist isn't right. And then we inevitably have to go all the way back to the start because we didn't have any of the arc mapped out. We didn't know what they wanted. We didn't know what their motivation was. We didn't know where they were supposed to go and what their challenges would be. But if we could take the Enneagram and see, exactly who would be the archetype that would be the antagonist to their protagonist, and you can literally identify that, and through that archetype. And so a lot of people use Jungian archetypes to write too. That totally works. But I think if you are a writer and you want to check out a different model that might save you time and at least give you another layer of perspective on writing, I recommend checking out the Enneagram. It's pretty cool.
And why not? Because we're all living the story. Darren Brown, the guy who reads people's minds, says it best. How does he figure people out? Well, a big part of it is we are the stories that we tell ourselves. So if you know the stories that other people tell ourselves, you've got huge insight. So what stories are you telling yourself? That's who you become.
I love that. Yeah. It goes along with Robert Anton Wilson too, because he says that we have the power to tell the story of or to define the meaning. So we're having this experience and we get to tell the story about that experience, and it's up to us. We can do that in so many different ways, but yeah, I love that.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Being in the moment, and not being sure. Taking big risks turns me on, and it's scary as hell, but it turns me on. I love improv comedy. I don't get to perform it. You really can't. It's hard to do by yourself. What are you gonna do? Improv comedy by yourself? It's just weird. But I love being in a position where there's uncertainty and freedom can occur. Maybe even getting on a plane by myself, going to a new place, and I don't know what's going to happen. I get so excited by that. I'm tantalized.
Yeah, it's like playing squash by yourself. If you have somebody there to bounce, ideas and things off of, then, you get so many more angles and, surprises that you would not expect. So yeah, it's the only way to do it.
It's so much fun. I love that. I love that there's a natural, sort of bubble that pops in improv comedy. It's like everybody gets up there, they start playing around and something happens. And because of that something that happens, that something begins to develop, and it sort of creates this bubble, right? And then ultimately this bubble gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you will let it and just keep playing, then it will pop all by itself. The audience will laugh, the scene will end, and that'll be it. And I just love the naturalness of that because it's uncertain. Nobody knows that it's not guaranteed, but every time it happens is a miracle, and it happens more times than it doesn't. So I think that's just a really interesting phenomenon and evidence to the fact that the universe is alive. It is living,
I love that you brought up that being in the moment is what turns you on, because that, to me, I recently read Ram Dass's Be Here Now, and that had a huge impact on me, because it really solidified that being present in the moment, there is no other moment right now, this moment, it just passed. It's so hard to describe though, because it's, it's the eternal now. And when you try to live in that space, that's where, that's what is real. I mean, that's where you can connect with your higher self or what have you. So I love that. I love your answer. It's awesome.
Thanks, man.
What was the most embarrassing or humbling experience of your life?
All right. Well, let's hope it was, because I still got a few years to live out, I've had a lot. So I hope I'm not information overloading or oversharing here. But there's another model that talks about soul wounds. It's a book by Lise Berbeau. It's called Heal Your Wounds and Change Your Life by Lise Berbeau. She's French. It's an awesome book. But it talks about there are 5 major soul wounds, and we have a combination to heal. That's her model. That's her hypothesis, and she did a lot of workshops and stuff. And a lot of the stuff is mind blowing how accurate some of it is. But mine is humiliation. And so humiliation is my major soul wound to kind of play through. So I've had a lot of experiences with humiliation, doing comedy, bombing, all that stuff. But the worst one that I think I've ever endured, and I'm writing a sketch about this now with a friend of mine. I'm finally to the point where I've resolved it enough that I can put it in my act and start making jokes about it. I mean, I accepted it a long time ago. It actually became funny in college, but it was devastating in high school. My name is Owen Michael Hunt. So Owen Mike Hunt is my name. And in the yearbook,
your parents are amazing.
Yeah, my dad's middle name is the same one as mine. And I was like, what the fuck, Dad? He was like, Corky's didn't come out till 82. All right, bud. That's where the joke came from, I guess. Nobody
That's funny.
Ever put
That's
it together.
really funny. Oh my God. That's amazing. Never even thought that one didn't even exist.
I know, right? Like it's always been the joke. Forever it's been the joke. But they printed my name in the yearbook that year. Just Owen Cunt. No, they just accidentally somehow. And I was humiliated by that. Everyone called me Owen Cunt every time they saw me in high school.
Oh no, you pissed off somebody on the yearbook committee or something.
That's what but I don't know who it was. I don't know who it would have been. I've got to find the picture because I don't have that year's yearbook. But I know there's people out there who do, and I really need to find that photo because it's in the golf picture. And the sketch that I want to do is about this golfer named Owen Cunt. And of course, we'll bleep the C word every single time just for funny, dramatic effect. Who almost could have been, right? I won't ruin the ending, but I'm pretty excited about it. Just to showcase that a little bit. And it's something also that I'm working on in my stand-up act to try to take cunt back.
Listen, as bad as that sounds, that's amazing armor. Because once you have to deal with like that, I mean, that's going to be ridicule that just follows you. And, if you can't get away from that at a young age, like it kind of teaches you like there's ways to cope. You'll find your way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was devastating. I mean, but when we were kids, man, my friends were savage. I don't know about other folks. I'm almost 40. I'll be 40 in 2022. So, that's the age that I kind of came up with. I ran with kids who were a little older than me earlier, so they gave it to me pretty good. And then when, I got into middle school and high school, my friends were just savage, man. I mean, you just out of nowhere, they could just run into you and tackle you and start punching you for no reason. I mean, it was weird. It was a wild growing up, but that's how it was. I got humiliated. They made fun of me. And as far as like doing integrative work, I actually developed a pretty sharp tongue too, because, I was getting a lot. So I was giving it back, and I can definitely dish it out. And I got to be able to dish it out so well that I crossed the line a few times with some friends of mine when I went to college at first. And I really kind of had to work back from letting myself fly off at the mouth. So it's actually, oddly enough, something that I'm trying to reincorporate at this point to have a little bit less of a filter, if that makes sense.
What is your greatest fear, and how did you overcome it?
Well, who's saying that I overcame it?
Yeah, and if you haven't, that's fine too. I actually left off the pejorative we normally, that's not even the right word. No. The part that we had at the end, which was if you have.
I have new ones emerging all the time, but the biggest one that I overcame, and this is something that I think is really, I think this is a really cool takeaway. I really do. I think fear leads us to purpose. So one of the biggest things that I was super afraid of when I went to Costa Rica after college, our band broke up. We were supposed to be good, and there was a bunch of drama. So I just ditched out I got my degree and I was like, peace out. I'm going to Costa Rica to become an outward bound guide. And I went out there, I took their course. I did all the ropes rescue and all this stuff. And it was great. I learned a lot. And what scared me the most was whitewater rafting. So, I mean, we had some close calls in the raft. My friend almost drowned, who's a kayaker from Colorado. So he's like a good kayaker. And I saw him go to the hospital. So that scared me to my core. When I came back from Costa Rica, and I continued to raft guide as part of my job down there, when I came back, I decided that because it was so scary to me, that I wanted to raft guide on this most arguably the most dangerous river in North America, the Gauley River in West Virginia. So I looked at videos and watched all these crazy flips and all these people going through the box and hitting Sweets Falls and flying over the front of the raft. And carnage, man. I mean, if you want to check out some fun stuff on the internet, just type in Gauley, Gauley river carnage, and you'll see some fun stuff. They used to be way more hardcore. They would like flip on purpose and all that kind of stuff. But it is the modern age. So people are a little bit more scared, but that was the biggest thing that I overcame. I was scared to death after seeing Joe almost drown. And there are people that die on that river, the Gauley River, every single year. So I knew I was putting myself potentially at risk. So obviously more concerned with other people than my own, like survival, because I had a whole boat of people and some of them probably shouldn't have been paddling on that river. But that was one of the things that I'm, I guess, proud of overcoming. And I think that led me into a place where it was easier for me to discover my purpose by continuing to follow things that were scary to me. Like, not scary, like, oh my God, there's a bear, I'm going to go see if I can, poke it or something. But just determining, what the next thing was that I wanted to do. What is going to be challenging? What am I afraid to do? Am I afraid to put myself out there? Am I afraid to this? Am I afraid of that? And if it is that fear, I feel like, and this is from David Data's book, The Way of the Superior Man, it's going toward that fear, which is our deeper purpose. So constantly choosing toward that fear, especially just from the masculine perspective. That's the path of the masculine. Water, man, it's powerful. It is unreal. But honest to God, I fucking miss it. I drove up to the mountains the other day just to look at the river. So I want to get back out there.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, especially once you start doing that, when you can handle life at those most extremes and constantly putting yourself into those situations, when something else happens, you already have a bearing on how you can handle and manage. I don't know, it just gives you a whole different perspective on life. And especially, fear is really what holds us back and changes us and prevents us from doing so many great things. So if you can go towards the things you fear, you start to break down barriers, and you can literally find new spaces to expand into. I love that philosophy.
I love that you used fear as like a compass. Like, that's where you need to go next, right? Because I've always thought, I've had this analogy of fear as like a needle, right? Like, the more that you fear something, the more you don't understand something. So like your fear needle moves up to like the full side of the tank, right? But I like yours a lot better because it's like because if you're looking for direction, right? What are you afraid of? You need to go explore there and understand that, so you can make that needle go down.
Yeah. And just through prolonged exposure, a little bit, and just chipping away. And you can overcome so much, as long as you don't try to do it all at once. You're smart about it and say, what am I afraid of? What am I willing to do? And that's how you grow. There's no other, you can't grow if you're always comfortable. So you have to figure out how to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation so that you do it's like, getting thrown into the pool to learn to swim And lots of people who are very successful, they do this practice. Like, Louis C.K., for instance, would start out, he would write an hour a year. He's the first comic to ever write an hour every year and perform it. And he would take the end of his previous year's performance and put it at the beginning of his next year's. So the entire crescendo, he would start here with his new act, and it would force him to push up from there. So by throwing your hat over the fence, by, skin in the game and putting it in the game intentionally up front, even though you're afraid of it, that can really make you commit too. But I think it's a great compass. I really do. And I learned that from David Data, so I can't take credit for it, but.
What is your single greatest driving force in life, and how do you further it?
I believe my purpose is something very simple, is to bring people joy. And I can put that into whatever container. Like, I could be chatting on a podcast. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys to tears. Jesus, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I love to bring people joy. I can, I try to infuse that in comedy if I'm doing that, or if I'm doing an instructional video or teaching this, or in the grocery store line. And so for me, that's sort of my mission statement, or my purpose statement for life is, hey, how can I bring other people joy in this environment? And I know that with energy, that energy is flowing through us, and it is taking on the characteristics of your thought material as it's flowing through us. So I'm actively bringing something into the world, and I really want to be bringing in as much joy as I possibly can for other people. So that, I would say, is my single greatest driving force. I'm learning layers on this based on when we're talking about the personality sort of thing and these essences. And these are complementary to this sort of main purpose. But the way that I coach and teach is that we kind of, and you don't have to have, the formal way or do the conventional, but a purpose statement, an essence statement that kind of can draw you back to grounding and keep you, present, keep you in the moment. And then if you can ground to that, then it's a lot easier to face these challenges. It's a lot easier to say, okay, what am I afraid of? Because if you don't have a reason for being, it doesn't matter what you're afraid of. I mean, it's a great way to start determining that and begin that process. But for me, that's what gets me through that process. So it's like, okay, well, I want to challenge myself. This is what I'm scared of. How am I going to stay motivated and not give up, even though I'm going to want to give up,
No, I love that too, because it also pushes you further. I heard Rogan talking about going out with a professional hunter, and they're both looking at each other like, hey, how am I going to get through this? But they're not talking to each other. And he's going, well, if you can make it, then I can make it. And they get back and it's like, man, the only reason I stuck through is because you stuck through. Well, wow. Wow, you guys pushed yourselves to new levels off of each other. And yeah, I love being able to frame the world in that way.
I think there's something really powerful about that too, harnessing and using the energy of a group in a productive way, right? As opposed to succumbing to it and being like the do as I do, like I'm basically just like a sales rep for whatever that thing is. But instead, people I think can use group energy to really push and harness and elevate. And, the old model of self-help is carrot and the stick, carrot and the stick. But one of the weird things that I learned about in like recreation and leisure studies is the energy of a group, and how, and I've experienced it too, even in Outward Bound in Costa Rica, of pushing myself much further than I would have ever pushed myself, because there was a group of supportive people around me who were encouraging me to continue to go. So I think that's something too that's really an important piece, an environment and exposing ourselves to people and using that group energy in a positive way to kind of keep.
Oh, and that can influence your world. Lynn McTaggart wrote a great book called The Power of Eight. And she's into intention experiments, proving that you can use intention to modify and change experimental outcomes, the idea of prayer. But when you have more people thinking in a way and praying in a way, you get an exponential effect. And it doesn't have to be necessarily 1,000 people, but 5 people is better than 3. And so, when you get a group mindset, a group of people who work together to become an Instagram or whatever, there's this mindset. You hear about it in mastermind, the idea of having a group of masterminds that, there's true power in a group that, I find it very interesting that as a society, we don't think of ourselves in the way that, and how I see the world is like our body. We're made up of cells. We're made up of bacteria that influence our, emotions. Each organ is separate. They help each other. Then you've got 2 sides of the brain that come over together to make one set of consciousness. And it's like, well, I don't think it stops there. I think it goes up to the human being, to the planet, that there's these greater systems that we're part of, that we influence, that you can't see the forest through the trees. It's impossible. I don't expect that the gut bacteria in my body that's changing the way that I think and changing my health and the things I'm craving is fully cognizant of that. So, framing my world in what role do I have that I don't know, but still reflects on everything I experience.
I love that. I'm going to look up the power of 8. That's a very specific number, for a lot of reasons. And improv troupe is 8, as well as
that's interesting. I never
the
even
freedom
thought about
cells. It's Bob Podolsky, actually, and I forget what his term is, but they're like emergency 8 or something like that. And it's also a number of 8. He determined it to be the most creative amount of people in a group.
And hot dog buns.
Yes. That's right. 12 hot dogs. It's like every party I go to. Yeah.
All right. Who are or were your role models and why?
I have a lot. And back to that mastermind idea, like, Napoleon Hill used to create his own mastermind in his mind, which is genius. I don't know why I should do that. I guess these would be the people who would be in there. And my role models, of course, I have a lot of great comedians and a lot of great philosophers and thinkers. Ralph Waldo Emerson, for sure. He's probably takes the cake for me. I love him so much. Maybe Logic, and he's just so open-minded and such a kind person. I think he's very I think a lot of people misinterpret some of his work. I really do. I think he's misunderstood a lot. But in that light, Emerson did say to be great is to be misunderstood. So there is that. Robert Anton Wilson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, 2 role models, no longer with us, but they're huge to me. George Carlin and Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks is the freaking GOAT, man. I don't think anybody's going to match that, and for a long time. But I hope I'm wrong. But wow, I wish I could be Bill Hicks, but every comic wishes they could, and none of us can. But yeah, I'll go with those 4. Richard Pryor too. I mean, God, I used to watch Richard Pryor when I was like 7, 8 years old. My parents would let me watch Eddie Murphy and all of the Saturday Night Live stuff, and Pryor and Carlin and all of that stuff. A living legend to me is Doug Stanhope. He was very impactful to me, especially in 2008 with the No Refund special. That was philosophically impactful for me, even at that time. And I wouldn't have considered myself awake yet. But love Doug Stanhope. Yeah. And I even have to throw him out there just because I think he is a really good example of leading masculine energy, and say Joe Rogan. Like the fact that he blew up Carlos Mencia's set to say, hey man, it's not cool to fucking steal jokes from people and then brag about it. It's not, first of all, it's obviously not cool to steal jokes, but then to brag about it on top of that. I think he influenced an entire different wave of comedy as a result of that. Like the Comedy Store, the documentaries that I've watched and stuff was in a dismal place at that time. And he kind of recharged it. And even the last time I was in LA, the scene felt, and this has been a couple of years, but the scene felt so much more democratic than it was like producery. Like this producer is going to, bring all these guys in and you're going to, it wasn't like that. It was like the comics decide, they're like, you're funny, you go. You're funny, you go. Hey, you maybe write some new jokes and see you next week. But it was, it was that way where it was so much more accommodating than I think it would have been in the 90s, even early 2000s, whenever all that stuff kind of erupted there. And it was really cool to see a comedy scene run that way. Cause to me, New York seemed woke and LA wasn't. I mean, you go in there and Tony Hinchcliffe would just haul out into something. I love that guy. just going for the throat. I
admire his puns and his quick thinking. It's so on the spot. I don't even know how he fires so fast. It's like watching a person like out calculate a calculator with their mind when somebody can type. Like he's on this like other inhuman level.
He is absolutely savage. I saw him clear a room out. I mean, he cleared the whole room out except for me because he was the most memorable comic. Me and my friend Wendy were there with like basically half the room left. And I won't tell his bit because I don't know, maybe he's still using it. But I mean, it was really edgy and I thought it was fun. But I like that sort of thing. And that was the kind of behavior that was encouraged. He even clowned on the comic before him. He was like, oh yeah, and he even like mocked his joke because that guy probably tells that joke every single night. You know what I mean? So the fact that it was live in the house like that was like, whoo, this is real heat. And I love that they were encouraging, that and not
it's playing off each other's energy. So it's allowing you to build. And I like you bringing up Joe Rogan because I love looking at the way that he approaches the world, because having followed him my whole life from just like news radio and then going into Fear Factor and then, early on in podcasting, the things he touches, whether it being a karate champion, world champion, like he has this way of approaching incredibly difficult things that he's not good at in mastering them, bow hunting, different, and it's amazing to look at this individual that, you're a cage fighter, you're a comedian, you are a sitcom star, you're the most listened to podcaster, how he thinks. And I love it because when I think of us in the world, all we're doing is thinking in a certain way and moving in a certain way. And how we manipulate those two things manifests this thing around us. And he's a case study for me constantly to look at, like in how these things come. He's hacked a way of manifesting reality. Anyways. You got to give him a lot of credit. And I think you're exactly right. He does have a knack to just kind of, he's very much a jack of all trades, he's very much a jack of all trades, which I consider myself to be too. I'm a generalist. And I think generalists get a bad rap because jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than master of one. Oh, Scott Adams says it best. He's like, and he's the guy who wrote Dilbert. He's like, I wasn't the best cartoon artist. I wasn't the best business person. And, I didn't have like all these things. But when you put together that I was, kind of funny, I was kind of a good artist. I kind of knew a lot about a business. I kind of knew a lot about technology and how to spread this stuff. So all of a sudden, because I'm kind of good at all these things, I'm the best at this. So he talks about like not setting goals and, because if you fail a goal, you're always going to fail, but approach the world as in, what skill am I going to get? If I go through this and I do it and I quote unquote fail, well, now I can take this skill and use it somewhere else.
Exactly. It's the process. And I think that's why that saying is that double, has that other twist to it, is because if you can understand a process, then it probably mimics other processes that you could apply, to whatever that is. So you could walk into, a business meeting if you have skills as a facilitator, or you could go into a film studio, and you could still probably do pretty well with organizing or arranging or producing the whatever the project or program was, based on that understanding of the process and what should happen. Now, you might fuck up too. You might not know a certain aspect that needs to be highlighted on this creative, type of project or something, but still, I think it applies well. And I think, he's definitely a good example of that. God, and just continuing and just not stopping. Like, he doesn't stop. He got to the top of the mountain and he kept going.
Absolutely. Can't give enough props to that guy. What quality do you most admire in a woman?
There's so many qualities. Something about women. They're so enchanting and beautiful. And I love women very much. I think as men, the masculine in us, like, there's something soothing about it. A woman just walks in the room and it feels different, so maybe just like that essence, that femininity, that sort of just kind of like can make you just loosen up a little bit, breathe a little bit deeper, be a little bit more present and aware, just because they're around. And sometimes that can make you a little bit self-aware, and maybe a little bit nervous, but fuck, that's fun too.
Yeah, well, it's that, my better half, the other half. Well, yeah, there's a dynamic and an aspect and a perspective and an energy that, when it's not there, you feel it. And so things are different. So yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, that's like your essence is what I find most, admirable. Yeah. That's what you admire most. So yeah, that's beautiful. That's like taking it right down to like the brass tack.
There's something about it. It's hard to explain. That's the only way I can kind of put it into words, but I do like it.
Yeah, I feel I answered my question wrong when I did the show. Like, that's it. Everybody else will just answer the same from now on.
Hey, we all know it. It's funny. Identify something or like put a label on it. It's like, oh yeah, that is what it. Because there's something that just is intoxicating, just about the presence of, especially if it's somebody that you have really good chemistry with and you're close to. But even friends of mine who are women who were just platonic friends, just them being around, like it makes me feel more at ease. I'm sure it's true on the other hand too. And maybe the sort of emotions different, or what they feel, or like how they would describe that. Probably with me, it's like a woodsy muskrat energy, or I don't know, like, like a fuzzy hush puppy or something, but I don't know. I don't know what it would be like for that, but yeah, something about it, like that we are, counterparts, and I think we're supposed to be around each other. So yeah, that's there. Yeah, I really do. I love women. there's a old saying, and I don't know if this is true or not, but people would tell me these old wives' tales. We have tons of them in the South. But they'd say there are two types of men who understand women and men who can be with women. And I've thought about that a lot, because I don't claim to understand women, but I know people in my life who I think really do, and I would go and ask, advice or something, and they would just laugh in my face, but I would never really see them shack up. They would just be single all the time. And then when I would ask them like to expound and to go deeper, I think that they had seen the edges of femininity and been, maybe burnt a time or two. I've been burnt a time or two myself. We all get burnt in relationships. That's part of it. but they kind of had this, I would say, disposition that was a little bit negative, and they thought that they probably understood better than they actually did. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that they actually do understand, it's that they think they do. And that's why they can't be with someone, because they think they understand them and they don't.
What is the most courageous thing you have ever done or seen in your life?
Most courageous thing. Oof. Again, you know, like there's a lot of time left. I hope to do more courageous things. I would probably have to, say it was going through a lifeguard training, which was terrible. And that's when I'm actually thinking of people being very encouraging and inspiring in a group. Because in that training that I was at in Costa Rica, you know, we went through this lifeguard training, and I just wanted to give up. I didn't want to do it. I wound up throwing up, you know, just swim across the pool and do all these push-ups and swim back and then do more push-ups and get out to put like, I mean, we had to like tread water for 45 minutes in the ocean, which the ocean's easier than a pool, but, that I wanted to give up and I did it. But, I remember as I was swimming and getting right to the end of, the certification and the time, they time you on everything, running up and down the beach, all this stuff. And I remember one of the girls that was in our group, and she said, I was struggling, but everybody was cheering me on. And she was like, "This will end." And I'll never forget that. Just hearing that, "This will end," me like, yeah, I was like so high. You know how you get like fucking out of your mind, like you're out of your body. You're exerting so much force with yourself. It's like an out of body experience. And I remember hearing her say that, and I just stuck with me, and it got me through the rest. It was like, maybe I was 5 laps down or something, and she'd scream that out, and it got me through the whole thing. But I wanted to quit so bad. Like I did not want to continue swimming and throwing up, but I did it, and I got junior beach lifeguard.
Nice.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a man in today's world? And this is kind of it can be viewed different ways. What does it mean to be a man in today's world? Or what does it mean to be a man in today's world?
Well, cool. I have to say, like being a man, what does it mean? I think it can have many meanings. I really think that to be someone that, you're happy with at the end of the day, to me, that's really important. To treat people with respect, to have integrity, and character, and to be a person of your word. I think these are all attributes that maybe are from the old world, but I still think they're relevant, and I still think they matter. I think it's important to lead and to face fear as a man. And just, from that masculine energy, which everybody has these polarities of energy and stuff, and some are more masculine, some are more feminine. But finding that purpose and that reason why, I think that's without a doubt the most important part of the process, because it keeps you grounded, it keeps you on track, and it keeps you accountable to yourself and to a standard that you yourself have determined for yourself. So it's your own invention, your own convention as well, that you're chasing an idea that you believe in. You are representing a cause that is worthy, and that is up to and worthy of sacrificing your life for it. I think that ultimately is the true sort of thing. What is it that what is it that you're willing to die for? And being aware of that, I think, is pretty manly.
In a way, that would be taking personal responsibility, right? And that even extends to like what media we allow to enter our brains. Like you're responsible for that. So, I mean, so yeah, great answer.
Well, I hear a lot of girls and stuff on, and I like Instagram, but like I have a lot, and they'll post memes and stuff about this kind of stuff, and I think a lot of women are really, and that's why I mentioned Joe Rogan, because I do think he has a strong, like, masculine leading nature, right? I might not agree with everything, and people are going to say, oh, well, he's a shill or whatever. I'm not talking about any of that shit. I'm just talking about masculine leading energy, and from a place that is strong and grounded and resolute, it's unwavering. And I don't know that he's like willing to die for the same cause as I am or whatever, but I imagine he's got some pretty firm boundaries and a strong direction, and so those are the kind of characteristics that I think I would like to see more of in men. And I understand women's gripes when they don't. It's like, oh yeah, we have to step up in the sort of confrontational realm as men. It just is what it is, right? Like don't be the guy who just goes along to get along, that masculine individuality, resoluteness, that purpose, and grounding to that. Like if you and it's not, don't wear a mask no matter what. That's not what I mean either. But at the same time, it's like, we have to put our foot down, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I say a lot, not that there needs to be any physical confrontation. I'm not trying to play that game, but, we have to put our foot down and just be like, no, because it's just important, I think, for autonomy and sovereignty in general. And it's a good gesture to lead. I think in general, men are just more individualistic, and we can look at ourselves when we were younger. Like I said, somebody would just tackle me and start beating the crap out of me when we were kids. The girls would be like, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. Or, I'm not coming to your party, and that's how they would punish each other. So it's a little bit different how we kind of communicate in the way that our cultures are. So I think it's important for us as men to be examples. And yes, absolutely, responsibility, and up to including. And sometimes it's overwhelming. Like I don't want to be the white guy who's crying about how hard life is, but it can be very difficult to be a man, and to try to attain these standards that are sometimes that are unrealistic. Not crying, and then getting ripped on for being toxically masculine, or, and toxic masculinity is a whole other ball of wax. I think we should be able to be healthy enough to share and have the environments to share. But it's almost like no matter who you are, you kind of run out of safe spaces. Somebody's going to come in and try to get some negative energy and hurt people. But yeah, I think it's really important to stand up and for what we believe in, even if I disagree with what someone else believes, I still respect them for just saying, hey, look, here's a line I draw in the sand. It doesn't have to be, like I said, confrontational.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And it is one of the more challenging things, that sometimes there's situations in which somebody needs to stand up and you're the capable one for whatever reasons, just by your situation and who you are, you can choose to act or not. And it's tough. That's been one of the biggest struggles in my life. And the only thing that's really pushed me through is a weird selfishness that you have the guilt of not having act and reliving that stuff, that I never want that again. And that is my reason for, even if it's dangerous, because, I can't let that poison live into me because my fuel. And it's a very underappreciated fear.
Yeah, it really is. And it's cool to be able to share it. I love what you guys are doing here with this show, because it just feels so welcoming. You guys are incredibly accommodating and just gentle and kind in a very masculine way, by the way. It's a good vibe. And I really appreciate you guys listening to me talk for so long. I feel like I have talked a lot.
Not nearly enough. That was the 13 questions, but if you do have time or want to, could ask a couple bonus questions. There's a couple in here I'm really interested to see how they rattle through your brain. Okay,
I'm game. I'll do it. I got nothing else going on tonight. And I'm having fun.
Sweet.
So let's do it.
What would you tell your teenage self?
I would tell my teenage self to really just look for what he really, really wants. Not what his friends want, not what's cool in school, not what's hip on TV, not what anybody else wants for him, but to really ask himself what he really wants, and to know that the resources for whatever it is that he wanted to pursue exist, whatever that was. For me, I feel like I don't have a regret about this, or maybe I do. I just said that. I guess if I could, I would go back and I would pursue comedy at a much younger age. I was obsessed with Saturday Night Live when I was a kid, and I wanted to be a cast member so bad, but I didn't know how to pursue that. I thought, well, maybe one day I'll go to college and they'll have a comedy class. I had no idea. So, there were books. There were books on how to write jokes. There were workshops on how to do improv comedy but I didn't really know as much about it. And also, even had I known, I kind of pushed that desire down. So that was really kind of something that I was really interested in doing. And I felt it, but I didn't pursue it. So I would tell myself to pursue that if I could go back. Now, I might have been too fragile to be able to pull things off in that time. And that's why I say I don't regret it. I don't regret it, but if I could go back, that's exactly what I'd do.
So we haven't done a bonus question in a few episodes, actually. And I was curious what your answer would be to this one, and promise you this will be the last one. If you could give one sentence of advice to future generations, what would it be?
Consider the implications on future generations. Like, I think it's the 4 Agreements. Is that the Toltec book? Where everything they do, they consider how it's going to affect the next 7 generations. I think that would be.
Yeah, the 4 Agreements. That was Don Miguel Ruiz, I think. Right. And Mark Steves was the one that reminded me of that, because when we had him on the show, we were talking about those 4 Agreements also, and I had it confused with Carlos Castaneda and his books. So yeah, awesome. I saw that is I think you're out of the hot seat officially now, right?
Well, it was not bad at all. I think you guys are super accommodating. I love what you're doing, and so I really appreciate the time to connect. I mean, I'm just honored to be able to hang out with you guys.
Oh, right back at you, man. I'm hoping it was a good experience. I know when I did it, it's kind of the way the podcaster things are when you're forced to sit down and just address these questions. It's something we just don't do. We don't have this type of introspective, looking at the wisdom and knowledge that we have. And when you do, I mean, yeah, it makes you do exactly what I'm doing there. Pause and think, and you don't know the answer. You get stuck in the thought, and like, they really help you explore yourself. So yeah, I hope that experience was enlightening for you.
Very much so. No, I appreciate it. I probably journal a lot about some weird shit, man. I was telling you guys about morning pages. I mean, I'm talking about like there's some weird stuff in there. But doing something like this and being able to share, it feels good. And yeah, I enjoyed the experience. I got a lot out of it as well. So doing this is a lot different. Like I can write stuff down in my journal all day. It's like I can save that over here, but actually having to be, forthcoming and talk about this stuff, it's another experience. And I think more people should ask themselves these types of questions. They're good questions. So I hope the audience at home, while you're listening to me rattle on, you're like, well, yeah, my experience with you guys, you should think about these things. We should all think about these things. Even though we can't answer a lot of things, I still think we should think about it like reality. I don't know what it is. I still think it's worth pursuing, trying to figure it out,
Well, thank you for coming on the show. And I love your answer to question number 9. What is your single greatest driving force in your life, and how you further it is to bring people joy? And I think that's what Adam and I are trying to do with this show. The little tips and tricks, and let's get different perspectives and figure this out together. So I love everything you had to say. Thank you for coming on the show. Do you want to plug anything for the listeners to find you?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me on the show. This was a lot of fun and a great experience. And I'm definitely going to be following you. I immediately was endeared to you guys as soon as I started listening to that episode today, which I didn't finish, but I did. I got in there. But this was a long one too, so I understand. But as far as plugging, my website is just bootsygreenwood.com. That's my stripper name. My name is Owen Hunt by birth. We know all about that. The other only thing is right now I'm just doing this book club thing. If people want details about that, I'll send a link to that offer. And then, everything's on my website, bootsygreenwood.com. You can get a free ebook there. YouTube is Bootsy Greenwood. Instagram, I'm pretty active, is Bootsy Greenwood as well. So I'm Bootsy Greenwood all over the internet just because it's easier to find, and I would love to connect with everybody. If you hop on my email list, sometimes at least through December, I'm going to be doing just some impromptu hanging out type of calls with people, and I'll let people know, hey, Saturday at 1 p.m. or whatever, we're going to be hanging out. So click this link, and I have a Discord
I love that you
server.
do that. It lets your fans and people that I joke that I'm best friends with Joe Rogan because I've listened to so many thousands of hours and hundreds of episodes that like you start to attach and you feel this. So it's great because it gives other people just another angle or perspective to see who you really are, not just, the thing that you produce, the art piece. So yeah, that's wonderful you do that.
Well, it actually happened to me last year where I was complaining to my friend Matt Raymer. He's the CTO of Content Safe. I'll plug them too. They're awesome. They distribute content for everybody and kind of keep them download their stuff, and then they'll upload it to a bunch of different platforms. And that's what they do. And so I'm one of their clients, and I'm also a rep for them. But they're awesome. But I was talking to him, and he said, I was like, man, I'm getting fucking shadow banned on YouTube. Sucks. It's bullshit, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, yeah, fair enough. He's like, but you got 5,000 subscribers. Like, why don't you just connect with the ones you do have? And I was like, well, thank you, buddy, because like, that is exactly what I started doing that. I said, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to write I'll write some emails. I wrote like a blog on Instagram because I had, and on YouTube, and just said, hey guys, I'm going to be putting out, a few things in my email. So hop on the email list if you want this exclusive, email only blog or whatever. And so people will hop on there. And then once they were on there, I wanted to make sure I was giving really good value, because I don't want to just sell to people in my emails. I find that really tacky. And I want to give value in my emails. I even saying the words give value right now, I can fucking taste stomach acid. But you know what I'm saying? I want people to actually read the emails and get something out of them. So I started just sending a Zoom link. I'm like, we'll be hanging out. So at least 2 or 3 times this month before the reading club kicks off, I'll just hold some open calls, and I'll just do it through the email list, and usually on Saturdays. So if people want to come hang out and just say, hey, I love it. I want to engage with people. It's more important anyway. I'm like, Matt was completely right. Look at this. How are we looking at this? Our perspective. And that's why I liked what you guys had to say today. When I was listening to your show, the one with Amish Phil, talking about ways to share and ways that were valuable to help the show or participate in the show, but not necessarily monetarily, right? And you have a lot of different ways to do that, which is awesome. I think that's really cool. And I'm starting a new show too. I'm actually just rebranding my podcast. My podcast right now is called Bootsy Green Gas, which is the worst name for a podcast ever. But at the time I didn't really have anything better. So that's what I went with. And I'm changing it though to Blue Collar Mystics, and I'm going to make it a panel show. The first one will be with Brian Scott of the Reality Revolution. He's pretty big and a friend of mine. So he was nice enough to come and hop on. And I'm going to have a panel show. So I'll definitely have you guys come and hang out on that. But I want people to send me their wake up stories, like 10 minutes audio or a short email.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I'll put it on the RSS feed, and we'll, and if people want to write in with a question too, I'll do some of that, like a mailbaggy type of thing. But I want to do that. I want to include people. I want to get to the bottom of this together, and I do want to engage. And it was really because of Matt that kind of kicked that whole thing off and got me thinking, like, how can I engage, with the audience instead of talking to a video screen? So many of the coaches in self-help, they'll literally Google stuff that's really popular and trending, and then they'll make a video on it. I'm like, dude, I can't live that way. Like, there's nothing intuitive about it. And it's just misery and grinding. I mean, I know there's an element of strategy and it's important, and I'm learning marketing and the game and all of that, but just so I can prove my clients that I know
it's a beautiful philosophy. I mean, the No Agenda show has, got exponentially huge. And one of the things they do is they call their listeners producers. Like, you are producing the show. We're deconstructing the news and media, but where are we getting the information from? Who's helping us? We're two people. Not everybody can be an NPR, and it's not sustainable to have, 27 people working and producing a radio lab. So yeah, truly you can become part of something greater, and it makes amazing systems. And, that's all just interconnecting and connecting with the people around you. Like we spoke of before, you can become something so much greater. So yeah, it's wonderful to see other people embracing that.
Yeah, man, it's so awesome to share this with you guys. And really, I was just talking to Mark Steves, and he's really been a big impetus in putting, a lot of people in touch. And I was just thanking him too, because, he put the Alt Media United thing together, and that's really, that's been a big, a great circle, a great network of people to start to meet. I'm stoked about it.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job with that Alt Media United. He recently added our show to the list, and so it's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Definitely send over all those links so I can include them in the show notes for the listeners, and you'll definitely see me in your Discord server in the very near future. I love Discord, so
awesome. I do too. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bill, and thank you, Adam. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for spending your time. It's the most valuable thing you can give, and it's not lost on us.
you wonder how when they know what? How you wonder how when they? How you wonder how when they know
Why
what?
is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians and use labels? Now that's racism.
How you wonder how when they?
Why?
How you wonder how when they know what? How you wonder how when they?
Why?
How you wonder how when they know what? How you wonder how when they?
Why?
How you wonder how when they know what? How you wonder how when they?
Why?
How you wonder how when they know
Why is
what?
there innocent people locked up for life? While some people can't say nothing nice. Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why. And why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why. And why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes. And why? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why?
How you wonder how when they?
Why?
How you wonder how when they know what? How you wonder how when they?
Why?
How you wonder how when they know what? How you wonder how when they? How you wonder how when they know what? How you wonder how when they? How you wonder how when they know what?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.